Hello guys, welcome to today's video. In this video I wanted to put the unreleased drift tuning cars up against the old ones in the form of a ranking list to see where I would put all these cars at. There's a total of 15 in the game, 3 of them being unreleased right now. I want to let you guys know that this is my opinion, and basically what I'm basing off of them is the ones that I like the most and the ones I've been driving the most. So if there's something you guys are going to like, it's to be expected. It's a ranking list. We're all different. So if you guys have a different opinion, you're definitely welcome to put it in the comments, but this is just my opinion on this topic. So let's jump straight into this. At number 15, I have the Yosemite. Now, this is the only pickup truck on the list, and I do really like it. It adds variation, but the reason why I have it in the 15th space is because this is the one that I have driven the least. Reason being, it's a little bit too big, and I kind of like the more sports cars in the game and all that for drift tuning, just because they're a little bit faster and a little bit more fun. Now, it doesn't mean that this thing isn't fun. It is a lot of fun to take it out every now and then to try something different, but personally, I like the other cars on this list even more than this thing, but it is a blast when you finally get to drive it again. So that's why I have it in this space. Let's move on to the next one. In my 14th slot, I have the Drift Tampa. Now, this one being the only muscle car on this list besides the Drift Yosemite, which technically doesn't really count. This thing is also a lot of fun, but it's kind of the same thing where it's a little bit too big for my liking, and I prefer the other cars on this list. This thing is an absolute blast, though. It is really, really fun when you get around to driving it. I know other people would probably have this car higher on the list just because it is really, really fast and it is really enjoyable. But for me, I like the other cars more. This is also a blast when you need to change things up. So let's move on to the next one. In my 13th slot, I have the Nebula Turbo. Now, this one could be very controversial. I know people really, really enjoy this car, but it just doesn't do it for me. It's one of my more least favorite cars. I do enjoy driving it, but at the same time, it's just a little too slow and not exactly what I'm looking for from GTA drifting. Of course, I originally drifted low grips, so I'm kind of used to a little bit more of the faster pace stuff, which is why I don't drive this thing as much. But it's really cool to have this thing as a drift tuning car, and it is really, really good at it. I just don't really like it that much. So that's why I have it in this space. Let's move on to the next one. In my 12th spot, I have the Sentinel Classic Wide Body. Honestly, I could never really get this car to work for me. I did like the speed more out of this car than I did the Nebula Turbo, but it just always felt a little too twitchy for my liking and not exactly smooth, which I kind of wanted a drift tuning a little bit more. The car was enjoyable while drifting it, it didn't really feel right the whole time I was driving it, which kind of threw me off a little bit for that car. But again, it's a great car at drift tuning, I just don't personally like it. So that's why I have it here. Let's move on to the next car. In my 11th spot, I have the FR36. Now, pre-nerf, this car actually used to be pretty good, and I did enjoy it a lot. But after the nerf, it really affected this car a whole lot, to the point where it is the weakest car now, really. I don't enjoy it as much, but it is still a lot of fun to drift, obviously, because the car itself is really, really good. It's just, it got tanked a lot in the nerf, and it's honestly sad to see, but it's still really cool that this thing is drift tuning. It's just, it brought its placement down a lot. So that's why it is here. Let's move on to the next car. In the 10th spot, I have the Vorschlag Hammer. Now, this car is actually a really good car. I really enjoyed it when it first came out, and it still kind of holds up. I really enjoy it personally. It handles really well, and I do like the speed that this car has. And I think it's an overall great drift tuning car, and that's why it's at the number 10 spot. Let's move on to the next car. In the number 9 slot, I have the Fudo GTX. Now, this thing is a little bit of a slower car, but honestly, I enjoy driving this car. It is really cool seeing the Fudos getting drift tuning, and honestly, they're a lot of fun in low grips, and they're a lot of fun as drift tuning cars. They're just enjoyable, and I really like them. But the Fudo GTX, it's at this spot because there's something about it that I don't like about the handling of the car. I can't really put my finger on it, but I just don't prefer this as much as the next car, which you'll see in a second, but it is still a lot of fun to drift, and I really do enjoy it. So let's move on to the next one. In the 8th slot, I have the normal Fudo. Now, this is the first unreleased drift tuning vehicle on this list, and I honestly prefer this thing, oddly enough, over the GTX. Now, I did do a sound comparison of the two cars, and basically this car now has the whole sound and probably everything of the GTX, but I just prefer it on this car. I don't know why, I just do. But it's honestly a lot of fun to drift, again, being a slower car, but still a lot of fun, and that's why it's at the spot, and I definitely want you guys to try it when it comes out, being the cheapest drift tuning car, which is crazy. But anyways, let's move on to the next car. In my number 7 slot, I have the ZR350. Honestly, this car is really good. I do enjoy it. This is the car that I mainly do my reverse drifting in, at least in that video that I made on it, and it is a lot of fun. With the nerf, honestly, it didn't change too much about this car. Obviously, the speed difference is pretty obvious, but besides that, this thing has stayed basically the same, and I really, like I said, enjoy it. I've said that a lot in this video. Honestly, these cars are a lot of fun, and this one is a testament to that. I always have a fun time when I hop into all of my RX-7s that I have, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, that's why it is in this spot. Let's move on to the next car. In the number 6 spot, I have the Euros. Now, honestly, this car used to be higher in my first ranking list, but over time this has changed. The Euros, after the nerf, has been kinda eh. I enjoy it still because obviously the Euros is a really fun car, but it kind of changed for me in the placements of things because it's not really as smooth as it once was before, and with the power change, it's kind of a little bit weird, but overall, it's a great car and is a great drift tuning car. I just think it changed because of the nerf. But anyways, it is at the number 6 spot. Let's move on to the next car. In the number 5th spot, I have the Jester RR. This thing, honestly, after the nerf, changed it for the better, if I'm being honest. The car before the nerf was alright, but then after the nerf, the car can kind of handle its own now, and honestly, it's probably better than it was. I don't know what about it changed, but the way that the power lowered in the car made it better. So honestly, I prefer this car a lot more over the Euros and everything like that, just because of the way it handles now and the way it drives. It's really good. So that's why it is at this spot. Let's move on to the next one. In my top 4, I have the Cypher. The reason why is because this car I really enjoyed when it first came out. The surge that this thing has when you transition is crazy. I love the way it just instantly goes to the door. I really prefer that style of driving, and this thing is capable of it, which I really enjoy. And honestly, it is one of the perfect drift cars, at least in my opinion, because I enjoy it so much. It just is my exact driving style. I love being aggressive, I love tapping doors, and it has it all. So that's why I have this thing in the top 4 spot. It is honestly a lot of fun, and I really, really like this car. In the 3rd spot, I have the Cheburek. Now, this is also one of the unreleased drift tuning cars, and the reason why I have this in the 3rd spot is honestly because it is one of the more faster drift tuning cars on this list when it's in a top speed, but also a little bit in drift if you know what you're doing. And it is the most rear-wheel drive drift tuning car of them all, which I really like. I like the feel of this car, I love the handling, and the speed makes it a lot better. And hopefully they keep adding more cars like this because I just prefer it, and it feels like the best balance between drift tuning and low grip tires, and honestly it's one of my favorite cars to use right now. So that's why it's in my 3rd spot. Let's move on to the next one. In the 2nd spot, I have the Remus. This car is amazing, the handling of this car is amazing, and the grip that this thing has is really good as well. It is an overall really good drift car, and honestly, it is really enjoyable. After the nerf, it's a little bit slower, but it still has its main features, and it is really, really great. It is definitely one of those recommended cars if you want to get into drift tuning and drifting in GTA in general, and I think it will always stay that way. It is just really good. But now let's move on to the final car. In my number 1 spot, I had to put the Jester Classic. The reason why this thing is above the Remus for me is because I've been driving it way too much recently. As you guys know, this is an unreleased drift tuning car, and currently in its unreleased state, and hopefully it will stay like this, it is incredibly fast. It is the best speed-wise drift tuning car, and it is so much fun that way. In drift, this car slows down a lot, which makes the car overall balanced, at least enough. And honestly, the amount of grip that this thing has in drift, which is not a lot, makes it super balanced. So I don't think they really got to do any fixing to the car. But when you are in those higher speeds that this thing can achieve, it is so much fun. And honestly, I can't wait for people to try it when it releases, and hopefully they don't nerf it. But that's why I have it above the Remus. It's not necessarily the handling can be twitchy at times, so I'm gonna say, but it's more about what this car is, how fast it is, and it just makes it a really great time drifting it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel, also hitting the notification bell to know when I upload and save it today. When I'm currently making this video, we are 31 subs away from 1K, which is amazing. I am so grateful to be at this position to almost be at 1K, and I cannot believe that I have gotten this big as a channel and this big as a creator. I really do enjoy it, and I cannot thank everyone enough who has subscribed recently or in the last few years I've been doing YouTube. It has honestly been amazing. So, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace!